It may sound like a conspiracy theory, but it's true. Donald Trump has finally publicly admitted that his entire policy for his second presidential term is based on the loud and notorious Project 2025, which he so actively denied during the election period. The day before, he stated that he would use the shutdown to fire a number of officials and quietly shut down dozens of programs and projects launched by the Democrats. And here the whole truth comes out, because after this public threat to shut down a lot of Democratic programs under the cover of the shutdown, Trump, no longer hiding it, stated, "From now on, all steps will be coordinated with Project 2025. Trump openly and publicly stated that he met with the main author of Project 2025, Russell Vought, to discuss whom to fire and which programs to shut down first. And here's your conspiracy theory. Back in 2024, Project 2025 stated that Trump was supposed to achieve a shutdown in order to use it as cover to completely dismantle all Democratic programs and strip them of their influence. And what's important is that it also outlined how to make it look like the Democrats were to blame. It even mentioned the creation of a Ministry of War, for example. And one more thing. Most of the co-authors of Project 2025 became ministers or heads of departments. My name is ADMITS. Let's dive deeper into this story, because this is the first time Trump admitted that yes, he is using Project 2025 to govern the United States of America. Before we begin, I want to remind you that several news and analytical segments are released on this YouTube channel every day, so I recommend subscribing to this YouTube channel. I ask you to like this episode and write any detailed comment under this video. And if you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so with any donation. Use the links and info in the video description to support ADMITS' channel. Choose any format that is convenient for you. There you can find sponsorship, PayPal, Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, bank details, and even crypto wallets. I will be grateful for any support you can give. So, I'll start, seemingly from afar. United States President Donald Trump warned that a temporary government shutdown could lead to federal employees being laid off and cuts to the Democratic Party's favorite projects. Trump, for some reason, noted that many might think he himself wanted this shutdown, but that's not the case. And this is where Trump, as they say, gave himself away. Quote, "I didn't want this. But many people say that because I am allowed to cut what should never have been approved in the first place, and that's exactly what I'll do." And then on Thursday, Trump suddenly writes on his social network, Truth Social, quote, "Today I have a meeting with Russ, Vought, known for Project 2025, to determine which of the numerous Democratic agencies, most of which are political frauds, he recommends cutting, and whether these cuts will be temporary or permanent. I can't believe the radical left Democrats have given me this unprecedented opportunity. They're not stupid people, so maybe this is their way to quietly and quickly make America great again." And this is where things start to get really interesting. Donald Trump mentions Project 2025 for the first time, calling it the source of his power. And the shutdown didn't just happen by accident, it was planned that way. The thing is, this Russ Vought, whom Trump consults about what to shut down and whom to fire, is called the architect of the government shutdown. In other words, the architect of the shutdown. Right now, Russ Vought is the director of the Office of Management and Budget, and it's Russ Vought who is the author of Project 2025. This is the very same Project 2025 that Trump repeatedly distanced himself from during last year's presidential campaign. Let me remind you how, during last year's debates, Trump said, quote, "I have nothing to do with Project 2025, D. I haven't read it. I deliberately don't want to read it. I'm not even going to read it." This is a quote from Donald Trump. These were debates. It was the pre-election period, but it all turned out to be a lie. The role of Vought as the main author of Project 2025 is well known. This plan is extensive. On September 25, he warned to get ready for dismissal and subtitles. The shutdown was then announced on October 1. But this is just the beginning. That's exactly the kind of reform the government plans. Project 2025, which Trump said last year was not created by his former or future aides, but by a group who came together. That's exactly the kind of shutdown scenario that's outlined there. Trump in 2024 has been distancing himself from this plan in every way, and for good reason. This Project 2025 was a real problem, because when most Americans read at least part of it, they were shocked and, according to sociological surveys, were against it. They said, no, we don't need such a radical change in the United States of America. But then, when Trump won the election, something happened. Most of Trump's second presidency looks exactly like it's outlined in Project 2025. In the very first week of his presidency, Trump signed 53 orders and directives. A simple analysis showed that 36 out of those 53 orders and directives almost completely copy the proposal set out in the so-called Mandate for Leadership. The Mandate for Leadership is the very action plan for the next Republican president from Project 2025. This overlap includes the first steps taken by Trump to fulfill some of his most highly publicized promises. This includes fighting illegal immigration, dismantling initiatives aimed at diversity, equity, and inclusion, removing environmental restrictions on oil and gas exploration, and so on. There are many additional overlapping factors, including skepticism toward the Federal Reserve and attempts to drastically reduce the number of federal employees. Even cutting funding for the National Institutes of Health and dissolving United States Agency for International Development were planned in advance. About the COVID-related matters. The most significant contributors, according to Kreni Himesh, are the Kors and the Krush Foundation, which has grown in this project, regarding work on the 2025 project related to power transfer. And now, an interesting fact. This guy, Paul Dance, left the foundation and started an election campaign against Republican Senator Lindsey Graham in South Carolina. It seems like they just want to get rid of old man Graham and put Paul Dance in his place. Here's the Republican Party merely a co-author of Project 2025. Well, the funniest thing is that many participants of Project 2025, which Donald Trump so loudly disavowed, are now working in Donald Trump's administration. First of all, since I've already mentioned him, next, Trump appointed Brendan Carr as the chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, who, surprise, wrote the chapter on reforming the Communications Commission in Project 2025. Trump read that chapter. He thinks, great guy, that's how it should be done, and appoints him chairman of the Communications Commission. Tom Homan, who funded Project 2025, has now become the head of Donald Trump's border administration. Peter Navodnanvaru has become Donald Trump's trade advisor. Another sponsor of Project 2025, Paul Atkins, has today become a commissioner of the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. And the whole problem is that Trump very loudly declared that he has nothing to do with Project 2025, and even promised not to read it in the future. But now he's just implementing it exactly as it's written, and even admits it publicly. He says Vought and I decide who to fire and what to cut, just like in Project 2025. Are you still surprised by the shutdown or not? Write your opinion, and write if you think this is just a conspiracy theory or if it actually looks pretty plausible. This is just my opinion. Share yours in the comments below. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.